Welcome to the Finance Wisdom Summaries.
The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness by Morgan Housel offers timeless lessons on how our emotions, biases, and unique experiences shape our financial decisions. It argues that doing well with money has less to do with intelligence and more to do with behavior. Housel uses compelling stories to illustrate that financial success is not a hard science based on formulas, but a soft skill deeply intertwined with psychology, history, and our individual perceptions. The book emphasizes practical behavioral traits like humility, frugality, patience, and adaptability over complex financial theories, providing a fresh perspective on wealth accumulation and management. No one's crazy. This chapter highlights that everyone's unique experiences with money shape their financial beliefs and behaviors. What seems irrational to one person might make perfect sense to another, simply because their life circumstances, economic environments, and values differ significantly. It uses the example of a wealthy tech executive who threw gold coins into the ocean for fun, but was outraged by a small fee, contrasting him with Ronald Read, a janitor who accumulated an $8 million fortune through consistent saving and investing. The core idea is that financial decisions are rarely made purely with spreadsheets. They're deeply personal, influenced by history, ego, pride, and incentives. Key takeaways. Financial decisions are heavily influenced by individual experiences, making seemingly crazy behaviors understandable from another's perspective. Your personal history with money, which is 0.0001% of what's happened in the world, accounts for roughly 80% of how you perceive the financial world. Formal intelligence or education doesn't guarantee financial success. Behavioral skills are often more critical. The concept of modern saving and investing, especially for retirement, like the 401k and Roth IRA, is relatively new, meaning most people are newbies to these financial systems. Notes for daily applications. Empathy in financial conversations. Instead of judging someone else's spending or saving habits, try to understand the unique life experiences that might have shaped their views. This can lead to more productive discussions about money. Self-reflection on financial biases. Acknowledge that your own financial beliefs are a product of your past. For example, if you grew up during an economic boom, you might have a higher risk tolerance than someone who experienced a severe recession. Questioning normal. Don't assume your financial normal is universal. What's a reasonable expense or investment for you might be drastically different for someone else.
Luck and risk. Housel argues that luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. Both acknowledge that life outcomes are influenced by forces beyond individual effort. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. The chapter illustrates this with the story of Bill Gates, who had the extraordinary luck of attending one of the few high schools with a computer in 1968. Conversely, his equally talented friend, Kent Evans, experienced 1 in a million risk by dying in a mountaineering accident before they could achieve their shared ambitions. The difficulty in quantifying luck and risk often leads to overlooking their impact on success and failure. Key takeaways? Financial outcomes are not solely determined by intelligence and effort. Luck and risk play significant, often overlooked roles. It's easy to attribute success to skill and failure to bad decisions, but this often oversimplifies complex realities where random chance is at play. When judging others' financial success or failure, recognize that factors outside their control might have been more influential than their actions. Focus on broad patterns of success and failure, rather than extreme individual case studies, as extreme outcomes are often influenced by extreme luck or risk and are less repeatable. Notes for daily applications. Humility in success. When you achieve financial success, acknowledge that luck might have played a part. This fosters humility and prevents overconfidence, which can lead to reckless decisions. Compassion in failure. When you experience financial setbacks, recognize that risk and uncontrollable factors might be more to blame than bad decisions. This helps you avoid self-flagellation and allows for self-forgiveness. Learning from patterns, not just individuals. Instead of trying to exactly replicate the strategies of a billionaire, look for common financial principles that have consistently led to success across many individuals, in some cases being frugal, saving, investing long-term. These are some distilled takeaways from the book.
Never enough. This chapter delves into the dangers of an insatiable appetite for more, even among the already wealthy. It highlights the destructive consequences of not knowing enough, using the examples of Rajat Gupta and Bernie Madoff, who, despite immense legitimate wealth, risked and lost everything due to greed and the desire for even more. The core message is that true wealth is not about accumulating endless sums, but about recognizing when you have enough to cover your needs and desires, and understanding that some things are never worth risking, such as reputation, freedom, and relationships. Key takeaways. The goalpost of financial desires can keep moving, leading to a constant feeling of falling behind, regardless of how much wealth is accumulated. Social comparison is a major driver of this insatiable desire for more, as the ceiling of wealth is always higher than one's current position. Enough does not mean too little. It means understanding that an endless pursuit of more can lead to regret and the loss of invaluable assets like reputation, freedom, and relationships. There are many things never worth risking, no matter the potential financial gain. Notes for daily applications. Define enough. Reflect on what enough truly means for you to live a comfortable and happy life. This helps set realistic financial goals and prevents the endless chase for more. Limit social comparison. Be mindful of how observing others' spending habits influences your own desires. Remember that what you see of others' wealth is often just their richness, what they spend, not their wealth, what they've accumulated. Prioritize invaluable assets. Consciously prioritize non-monetary assets like time, relationships, and health. These are often sacrificed in the pursuit of more money, but are ultimately far more valuable. Confounding compounding. This chapter highlights the counterintuitive power of compounding. Housel illustrates this by comparing the slow, almost imperceptible buildup of ice sheets from small changes in summer temperatures to the massive fortunes built by individuals like Warren Buffett, not just because of his investing skill, but also due to his incredibly long time horizon. The human mind struggles with exponential growth, leading us to underestimate its potential and instead seek out quick, dramatic gains that are often unsustainable. Key takeaways. Compounding is the most powerful force in finance, but its results are often so extraordinary that they defy intuitive logic. Warren Buffett's immense wealth is largely attributed to his consistent investing over 3/4 of a century, demonstrating the power of longevity in compounding. Linear thinking prevents us from fully appreciating exponential growth, leading to a focus on maximizing short-term returns rather than sustaining good returns over long periods. Good investing is less about earning the highest one-off returns and more about earning pretty good returns that can be consistently maintained for the longest possible time. Notes for daily applications. Start early, stay consistent. The most impactful financial decision you can make is to start saving and investing as early as possible and maintain consistency even with small amounts. Embrace patience. Understand that significant wealth accumulation takes time. Avoid chasing get-rich-quick schemes and instead focus on a steady, long-term approach. Reframe small contributions. Recognize that seemingly small, consistent savings, for example, $50 a week, can lead to astonishing results over decades due to compounding. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. This chapter draws a sharp distinction between the skills required to get wealthy and those needed to stay wealthy. Getting wealthy often requires taking risks and being optimistic, while staying wealthy demands humility, frugality, and a degree of paranoia about losing what you've accumulated. The stories of Jesse Livermore and Abraham Germansky, both of whom lost fortunes after initially striking it rich, underscore the fragility of wealth without a survival mindset. Key takeaways. Getting wealthy involves taking risks and having optimism, but staying wealthy is about humility, frugality, and paranoia. The ability to survive unpredictable ups and downs is crucial for long-term compounding to work its magic. Financial plans should always account for the unexpected and emphasize room for error, or margin of safety. A barbelled personality, optimistic about the long-term future but paranoid about short-term risks, is vital for financial endurance. Notes for daily applications. Build an emergency fund. Prioritize building a substantial emergency fund, like 6 to 12 months of living expenses, to act as your survival capital during unexpected downturns, preventing forced selling of investments. Practice frugality. Make frugality a habit, not just a temporary measure. Consciously keep your lifestyle inflation in check as your income grows. Stress test your financial plan. Don't just plan for best-case scenarios. Consider what would happen if your income dropped, the market crashed, or you faced a major unexpected expense. Build in buffers. Tails you win. This chapter explains that in many areas of life, especially investing, a small number of outlier events, the long tail, account for the vast majority of outcomes. This means that you can be wrong most of the time and still achieve significant success as long as your few winning bets are large enough. Examples include venture capital, where a tiny percentage of investments drive most returns, and the stock market, where a handful of companies account for the majority of overall gains. This counterintuitive reality means it's normal for many things to fail, and overreacting to these failures can be detrimental. Key takeaways. Most successes in business and investing come from a few tail events, meaning a small number of investments or decisions account for the majority of returns. It is normal for many investments or ideas to fail. An investor can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune if their few winning bets are substantial. The most important decisions in your investing life are often how you respond during moments of sheer terror, market crashes, or personal crises, rather than during periods of cruise control. Diversification is essential because you don't know which investments will be the tails that drive your returns. Notes for daily applications. Embrace diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify your investments across many assets, companies, and industries, acknowledging that most will be duds, but a few will be winners. Resist overreacting to losses. Understand that not every investment or financial decision will work out. Don't let individual losses derail your overall strategy. Instead, view them as a normal part of the process. Stay invested during downturns. The periods when everyone else is going crazy are often when the biggest long-term gains are set up. Maintaining discipline and staying invested during market turmoil can significantly impact your lifetime returns. Freedom. This chapter argues that the highest form of wealth is the ability to control your time. Money's greatest intrinsic value lies in providing independence and autonomy, allowing you to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, for as long as you want. The satisfaction derived from controlling your life often outweighs the pleasure of acquiring luxury goods. Housel shares his personal experience of leaving a high-paying investment banking internship because the lack of control over his time made him miserable. Key takeaways.
The ultimate dividend money pays is the control it gives you over your time and options. The ability to decide what you do, when you do it, with whom, and for how long is a powerful predictor of happiness. Using money to buy time, example, taking days off, waiting for a better job, retiring early, often provides more lifestyle benefit than buying luxury goods. Modern jobs, particularly knowledge-based ones, can make it feel like work never ends, making control of one's time even more valuable. Notes for daily applications. Prioritize savings for flexibility. Actively save with the goal of gaining financial independence, even if it means sacrificing some current consumption. This builds a buffer that allows you to make choices about your time. Value time over possessions. When faced with a choice between buying a material good and having more free time or flexibility, consider the long-term happiness derived from time control. Negotiate for flexibility. In your career, consider negotiating for more flexible hours or remote work options, recognizing the immense value of autonomy.
Man in the car paradox. This chapter reveals a common paradox. People often desire wealth to gain respect and admiration from others, but buying expensive possessions rarely achieves this. Instead, when people see someone with a fancy car, they often imagine themselves owning it and the admiration they would receive, rather than admiring the actual owner. Housel, drawing on his experience as a valet, notes that he admired the cars, not the drivers. True respect and admiration are more often earned through humility, kindness, and empathy than through material displays of wealth. Notes for daily applications. Re-evaluate spending motivations. Before making a significant purchase, ask yourself if you're buying it for genuine enjoyment or primarily to impress others. Focus on intrinsic value. Prioritize experiences, skills, and relationships that bring you personal fulfillment, rather than material items whose value is often derived from external validation. Practice humility. Cultivate humility in your financial life. Avoid flaunting wealth, and instead, focus on being a kind and empathetic individual.
Wealth is what you don't see. This chapter defines wealth as what you don't see, the income not spent, the assets not converted into visible possessions. It contrasts this with richness, which is a current income or the visible display of money. Housel argues that society often confuses richness with wealth, leading people to believe that spending money makes them wealthy, when in fact it's the opposite. The hidden nature of true wealth makes it difficult to learn from or imitate, contributing to widespread poor financial decisions. Key takeaways. Wealth is the accumulation of assets not yet converted into visible spending. It's income saved, not spent. Rich refers to current income or visible displays of money, while wealthy implies accumulated, unspent assets that provide options and flexibility. The desire to feel rich often leads to spending, which is the antithesis of building wealth. The invisibility of wealth makes it hard for people to learn from successful examples, as they only see the spending, not the saving. Notes for daily applications. Distinguish between rich and wealthy. Consciously shift your mindset from chasing richness, visible spending, to building wealth, accumulated savings and investments. Live below your means. The most direct path to wealth is consistently spending less than you earn. This creates the leftovers that become your wealth. Reframe saving. Don't just think of saving as delaying gratification. Think of it as accumulating future options, freedom, and the ability to buy more valuable things later. Save money.
This chapter makes a powerful case for saving money, emphasizing that it's the only factor in wealth building that is 100% within your control. Unlike investment returns, which are shrouded in uncertainty, savings directly contribute to accumulated wealth regardless of market conditions. It argues that past a certain income level, increasing your savings rate is more about managing your ego and caring less about what others think, rather than earning more or finding higher returns. Saving for saving's sake provides invaluable flexibility and control over your time, which is an incalculable return. Key takeaways. Building wealth is primarily driven by your savings rate, not necessarily your income or investment returns. Savings and frugality are within your direct control and have a 100% chance of being effective in the future. Beyond basic needs, increased spending often caters to ego, making humility a powerful driver of higher savings rates. Saving without a specific spending goal provides unparalleled options, flexibility, and control over your time, which is an incalculable return. Notes for daily applications. Automate savings. Set up automatic transfers to a savings or investment account to ensure consistency, making saving a default behavior rather than a conscious decision. Practice lifestyle deflation, or at least lifestyle neutrality. As your income rises, resist the urge to immediately inflate your lifestyle. Channel raises and bonuses into savings. Embrace FU money. Understand that saving money, even without a specific goal, creates a buffer that allows you to say no to unfavorable situations, whether it's a demanding boss or a bad investment, giving you true independence.
Reasonable, greater than rational. This chapter challenges the notion of coldly rational financial decision-making, arguing that aiming for reasonable financial behavior is more realistic and sustainable in the long run. Humans are emotional beings, and decisions are influenced by psychological factors, not just mathematical optimization. The desire to minimize future regret or to simply sleep well at night often leads to decisions that may not be mathematically optimal but are perfectly reasonable for an individual's psychological well-being. Key takeaways. People are human, not purely rational, and financial decisions are often driven by emotions and personal contexts rather than just numeric facts. Aiming for reasonable financial decisions rather than coldly rational ones increases the likelihood of sticking with the strategy long term, which is critical for success. Minimizing future regret or maximizing sleep at night are valid, often overlooked financial goals. Passion, or loving your investments, even if not strictly rational, can provide the necessary endurance to stick with a strategy through difficult times. Notes for daily applications. Invest in what you understand or like. While diversification is key, investing a small portion in companies or sectors you genuinely understand and believe in can make it easier to hold on during downturns. Define your sleep well threshold. Determine your personal risk tolerance not just on paper, but emotionally. What level of market volatility or debt allows you to sleep peacefully? Structure your finances around that. Don't chase optimal. Accept that a perfect financial strategy on paper might be impossible to execute emotionally. A slightly less optimal but more psychologically comfortable strategy is superior because you'll stick with it.
Surprise! This chapter asserts that history is the study of change, and therefore, an over-reliance on past data as a precise map for the future is a fallacy. Things that have never happened before happen all the time. Innovation, human behavior, and structural changes in the economy mean that outlier events, which are impossible to predict, will always be the most impactful. This highlights the inherent unpredictability of financial markets and economies. Key takeaways. History is a guide for understanding human behavior and general patterns,
but it is not a precise map for predicting future economic or market events due to constant innovation and change. The most impactful events, i.e., outliers, are often unprecedented and therefore difficult to predict from historical data. Relying too heavily on past experiences can lead to overconfidence and an inability to adapt to new realities. The correct lesson to learn from surprises is that the world is surprising. Notes for daily applications. Prepare for the unexpected. Instead of trying to predict the next market crash or boom, focus on building financial resilience that can withstand a wide range of unforeseen events. Be flexible with your plans. Recognize that your long-term financial plan might need to adapt to unpredictable changes in the economy, technology, or your personal life. Don't over-optimize based on past data. While historical returns are useful benchmarks, don't assume the future will perfectly mirror the past. Build in a margin of safety, see Chapter 13, to account for surprises.
Room for error. This chapter stresses the critical importance of room for error, also known as margin of safety or redundancy in financial planning. It's the only effective way to navigate a world governed by odds, not certainties. The core idea is to plan on your plan not going according to plan. Whether it's blackjack card counters knowing they can still lose hands or Warren Buffett holding massive cash reserves, successful financial players acknowledge that unpredictable events can and will happen, and they build in buffers to survive them. Key takeaways. Room for error is crucial because uncertainty, randomness, and unknowns are inherent parts of life and finance. The purpose of a margin of safety is to render the forecast unnecessary, acknowledging that precise predictions are impossible. Underestimating the need for room for error is common as people tend to be overly confident in their own predictions and resist actions that don't fully exploit perceived opportunities. A high margin of safety allows you to endure a range of potential outcomes and stay in the game long enough for compounding to work, even if some risks materialize. Notes for daily applications. Maintain a cash buffer. Keep a significant portion of your assets in cash, even if it seems unproductive during bull markets. This cash provides flexibility and prevents forced selling of investments during downturns. Underestimate future returns and overestimate expenses. When planning for retirement or other long-term goals, use conservative estimates for investment returns and higher estimates for future expenses to build in a strong buffer. Avoid excessive leverage. Debt amplifies both gains and losses. Avoid taking on too much debt that could wipe you out if an unexpected event occurs, even if the odds seem favorable.
You'll change. This chapter explains why long-term financial planning is challenging. People's goals, desires, and even personalities change significantly over time. The end of history illusion describes our tendency to acknowledge past personal changes while underestimating how much we will continue to change in the future. This makes it difficult to commit to financial plans made by a different past self, potentially leading to regret if extreme decisions were made. Key takeaways. Long-term financial planning is complicated by the fact that individuals' goals and desires evolve over time. The end of history illusion causes us to underestimate how much our future selves will differ from our present selves. This makes it difficult to commit to financial plans made by a different past self, potentially leading to regret if extreme decisions were made. Extreme financial decisions, e.g., living too austerely or working excessively for high income, increase the likelihood of future regret as personal priorities shift. Balance in financial planning and the willingness to abandon sunk costs, past decisions, when your goals change are key to long-term endurance and minimizing regret. Notes for daily applications. Build in flexibility to your goals. Recognize that your definition of success or happiness might change. Build flexibility into your financial plans so you can adapt without severe consequences. Avoid extreme sacrifices. Don't make extreme financial sacrifices in your youth, e.g. working 100-hour weeks for a decade, that might lead to significant regret later in life when your values shift towards family or free time. Be willing to change course. If a financial decision or career path no longer aligns with your evolving goals, be willing to pivot. Don't let sunk costs or past commitments trap you in an undesirable future.
Nothing's free. This chapter highlights that everything worthwhile has a price, even if it's not immediately obvious. In investing, the price of good returns is often volatility, fear, doubt, uncertainty, and regret, the fee that must be paid. Many investors mistakenly try to get returns without paying this emotional price, leading to strategies that often don't work and ultimately cost them more in the long run. Understanding and accepting these hidden costs as fees rather than fines is crucial for long-term investing success. Key takeaways. All valuable financial outcomes come with a price, but these prices, like market volatility or doubt, are often hidden or non-obvious until experienced. In investing, the price of good returns is often volatility, fear, uncertainty, and regret, which must be accepted as part of the process. Attempting to avoid this fee, such as through market timing, often leads to worse outcomes, as investors end up paying double by missing out on gains or incurring unnecessary losses. Viewing market downturns and uncertainty as a fee for admission to long-term growth, rather than a fine for doing something wrong, helps cultivate the necessary mindset for endurance. Notes for daily applications. Mentally budget for volatility. When investing, don't just consider potential returns, also mentally prepare for inevitable market downturns. See them as a necessary cost of admission to long-term growth. Avoid market timing. Resist the urge to sell investments during market corrections and buy back in later. This is often an attempt to avoid the fee of volatility, but usually results in missing out on recovery and higher long-term costs. Accept imperfection. Acknowledge that your investment journey will not be smooth. There will be periods of stress and doubt, but these are normal part of the process.
You and me. This chapter warns against taking financial cues from people playing a different game than you are. Financial assets do not have a single rational price because investors have wildly different goals and time horizons, such as day traders versus long-term investors. Bubbles often form when long-term investors start mimicking the short-term behaviors of traders, not realizing they are playing entirely different games with different rules and objectives. This misunderstanding can lead to disastrous outcomes. Key takeaways. Financial asset prices are subjective, depending on the individual investor's goals and time horizon. Bubbles are often a result of long-term investors taking cues from short-term traders, not realizing that they are taking different games and underlying motivations. Socially driven consumer spending often stems from comparing oneself to others who may have different financial realities or goals. Understanding your own time horizon and identifying the specific financial game you are playing is crucial to avoid being swayed by others' actions that are irrelevant to your goals. Notes for daily applications. Define your investment horizon. Clearly articulate your own financial goals and time horizons, such as saving for retirement in 30 years versus a down payment in 3 years. Ignore the noise. Filter out financial advice and market commentary from sources that cater to different time horizons, such as day trading tips if you're a long-term investor. Avoid keeping up with the Joneses. Be aware that others' spending habits might be driven by different professional or personal needs. Don't let their visible consumption dictate your own financial choices.
The seduction of pessimism. This chapter explores why pessimism often sounds smarter and more plausible than optimism, even when long-term trends are positive. Pessimism is intellectually captivating because it often extrapolates current problems without accounting for human adaptability and market solutions. Progress happens slowly and incrementally, making it hard to notice, while setbacks and failures are sudden and dramatic, capturing immediate attention. This asymmetry leads to an overemphasis on potential downsides and an underappreciation of long-term growth. Key takeaways. Pessimism is often perceived as more intelligent and credible than optimism, primarily because threats feel more urgent than opportunities. Bad news like recessions or market crashes tends to be ubiquitous and grabs attention, while good news like long-term economic growth is often ignored or underreported. Pessimists often fail to account for how markets and humans adapt to challenges, leading to solutions and innovations that defy straight-line forecasts. Progress is slow and often unnoticeable, while destruction is sudden and impactful, making pessimistic narratives more compelling in the short term. Notes for daily applications. Cultivate realistic optimism. Believe that things will generally get better in the long term while acknowledging that setbacks and periods of misery are inevitable parts of the journey. Filter news consumption. Be critical of financial news that sensationalizes negative events. Recognize that media thrives on drama, not necessarily long-term accuracy. Focus on adaptability, not prediction. Instead of trying to predict the next crisis, focus on building financial flexibility that allows you to adapt to any unforeseen challenge.
When you'll believe anything. This chapter argues that appealing fictions, stories we want to believe because they offer solutions to high-stakes problems, are more powerful than statistics. When confronted with limited information and significant uncertainty, especially financial, people are prone to believe narratives that align with their desires, even if those narratives are improbable. This phenomenon explains why financial quackery thrives and why forecasts, despite their poor track record, remain popular because they satisfy an emotional need for control and predictability. Key takeaways. The human mind constructs coherent narratives to fill in gaps of unknown information, even if these narratives are inaccurate or incomplete. When stakes are high and information is limited, people are highly susceptible to appealing fictions, stories they desperately want to be true. The demand for financial forecasts, despite their low accuracy, stems from a human need to believe in a predictable, controllable world. Overconfidence in our own beliefs often comes from focusing on what we know and neglecting what we don't know, leading to a dangerous illusion of control. Notes for daily applications. Question your own biases. Before making a financial decision, especially a significant one, ask yourself if you're being swayed by what you want to be true, rather than what the evidence suggests. Be skeptical of gurus and hot tips. Financial predictions that promise easy or outsized returns often play into appealing fictions. Be wary of anyone claiming certainty in an uncertain world. Embrace uncertainty. Accept that many financial outcomes are beyond your control and unpredictable. Focus your energy on what you can control, saving, behavior, risk management, rather than chasing the illusion of prediction.
All together now. This chapter serves as a summary, reiterating key lessons from the book and offering actionable recommendations for better financial decision-making. It emphasizes humility, managing ego, increasing time horizons, embracing imperfection, prioritizing control over time, practicing frugality, and understanding the true cost of investing. The core message is that there's no single right answer in finance. Rather, it's about finding what works for you and your family, maximizing for psychological comfort and long-term endurance. Key takeaways. Cultivate humility during success and compassion during setbacks, recognizing the roles of luck and risk. Manage your ego to build wealth, understanding that saving is the gap between ego and income. Prioritize sleeping well at night as a primary financial guidepost, even if it means sacrificing theoretically higher returns.
Increase your time horizon in investing. It's the most powerful force for compounding and helps overcome luck and risk. Accept that many things will go wrong in investing. Focus on the overall portfolio rather than individual successes or failures. Use money to buy control over your time, as it's the highest dividend. Be humble and less flashy. True respect comes from kindness, not possessions. Save without specific goals, as a hedge against life's inevitable surprises. Recognize and accept the invisible fees of investing, volatility, doubt, rather than viewing them as fines to be avoided. Worship room for error. It provides endurance and allows compounding to work. Avoid financial extremes and be willing to change your mind as your goals evolve. Define your own game and don't be swayed by others playing different ones. Notes for daily applications. Regular financial check-ins. Periodically review your financial goals and current situation to ensure they still align with your evolving self. Be prepared to adjust. Balance in all things. Seek balance between saving, spending, and enjoying life at every stage. Avoid over-optimization that might lead to burnout or regret. Personalize your strategy. Don't blindly follow common financial advice. Understand your own risk tolerance, values, and psychological comfort, and tailor your approach accordingly.
Confessions. In this concluding chapter, Housel shares his personal financial philosophy, emphasizing that his choices are driven by independence and sleeping well at night, rather than maximizing returns or living a luxurious life. He explains his family's high savings rate, which stems from maintaining a modest lifestyle established in their younger years and valuing independence above all else. He also reveals his preference for low-cost index funds and a significant cash buffer, acknowledging that these decisions may not be rational on paper, but are reasonable for his psychological comfort and long-term endurance. Key takeaways. Personal financial decisions are deeply individual. There's no one right answer or universal truth, only what works for you and your family. The author's primary financial goal is independence and control over his time, leading to choices that prioritize psychological comfort over maximizing theoretical returns. Maintaining a consistent, modest lifestyle despite rising income, lifestyle neutrality, significantly boosts savings rates and accelerates financial independence. Holding a substantial cash buffer, even if irrational from a purely returns perspective, provides essential flexibility and prevents forced selling of investments during unexpected events. A simple, low-effort investment strategy like dollar-cost averaging into low-cost index funds can be highly effective by focusing on the few key drivers of long-term success: a high savings rate, patience, and optimism in economic growth. Notes for daily applications. Articulate your why. Clearly define your core financial goals beyond just getting rich. Is it independence, security, a specific lifestyle, or something else? This why will guide your decisions. Embrace lifestyle neutrality. Challenge yourself to maintain your current lifestyle as your income increases. Direct any raises or bonuses directly into savings or investments. Design for peace of mind. Structure your financial life to maximize your psychological comfort. If having a large cash buffer helps you sleep at night, embrace it, even if a spreadsheet says otherwise. And keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate your investment strategy. A consistent approach to saving and investing in diversified, low-cost funds often outperforms complex, high-effort strategies. Postscript. A brief history of why the U.S. consumer thinks the way they do. This section provides a historical context for current consumer behavior, explaining how a post-World War II era of widespread economic growth and relative equality fostered expectations of similar lifestyles across different income levels. However, as economic growth became more uneven from the 1980s onwards, these ingrained expectations led many Americans to take on increasing debt to maintain a perceived normal lifestyle, even when their incomes weren't rising proportionally. This big stretch ultimately contributed to financial fragility and events like the 2008 crisis. Key takeaways.
Post-war America fostered an expectation of broad middle-class equality and a cultural acceptance of debt to finance consumption. Economic growth after the 1980s became increasingly uneven, with disproportionate gains for the top income earners. The persistence of post-war expectations of similar lifestyles, despite rising income inequality, led many to take on unsustainable levels of debt to keep up with others. Cultural norms and expectations can have a profound and often delayed impact on financial decisions, even when economic realities change. Notes for daily applications. Recognize historical context. Understand that current societal expectations about wealth and consumption are deeply rooted in historical economic trends. Challenge lifestyle inflation. Be consciously aware of the keeping up with the Joneses effect and actively resist the pressure to continuously upgrade your lifestyle as a response to perceived peer standards. Financial education across generations. Engage in open conversations about money with family members across different generations to understand varying financial mindsets and historical influences.
Main idea of the book. The Psychology of Money posits that financial success is less about what you know, intelligence, or complex formulas, and more about how you behave, psychology, and emotional control. Housel argues that human emotions, biases, and unique life experiences profoundly shape our money decisions, often leading to seemingly irrational choices that are in fact reasonable from an individual's perspective. The book champions behavioral traits like humility, frugality, patience, and adaptability as the cornerstones of lasting wealth. It emphasizes the power of long-term compounding, the critical importance of enough, building in a room for error to survive inevitable surprises, and the ultimate value of money in buying control over one's time and independence. Ultimately, good financial decisions are those you can stick with for the long run, even if they aren't always rational on paper.
If you enjoyed the content, please consider supporting the author.
Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, subscribe. Now, let's go to the next video.